Well, hello again, everybody. John Mitchell here from johnamitchell.tv. I want to thank everybody who's watching this video for being with us. And I've got a couple of news stories here today. They're not the latest news, but they're interesting stuff. So let's dive right in. I'm going to call today's video The Tale of Two Data Breaches. Now, both of these data breaches have taken place over the last several months. And the thing that ties them together is that both times the party that was hacked and released this information to nefarious people is the federal government. Now, the first one of these stories is about those fingerprints stolen in the OPM hack, and here is, the story. It's printed from the Atlantic. And the Office of Personnel Management, that is, you can think of it basically as the federal government's human resources division, right? So the funny thing about the OPM, or the interesting thing, I guess I would say, they have information on basically all federal employees, no matter what part of the federal government you work in. So if you are an FBI special agent, maybe even, let's say, undercover, your information is in the OPM. Office of Personnel Management. If you work for the IRS, if you work for, as the CIA, any number of government agencies, your information is filed in the Human Resources Department, which in this case is the OPM, Office of Personnel Management. Now, they have much more sensitive and detailed information on federal employees than any normal employer would have. I mean, let's say if you're a barista down at Starbucks, to get that job, the FBI did not go interview your neighbors about you. Correct me, anyone out there, if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think Starbucks also doesn't, get your fingerprints when you go to work for Starbucks, and they don't check your credit report. And if you go to work, let's say at Walmart, none of that stuff happens. But if you go to work for the FBI, if you go to work for the CIA, well, the government's going to have everything in your personnel file, up to and including your fingerprints, your blood type. God only knows what else they've got. I mean, maybe DNA samples. I can't say that's true because I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, when this data breach at the OPM came about, they had estimated that, and interestingly enough, now let's bring this up, background checks for security clearance. Okay, so if you can get your hands on those files, I mean, you've got a person's whole history, not only on themselves, but on their family members that don't even work for the federal government. You got criminal records, you got credit histories, you got psychological profiles and more. And so they had originally estimated that about 4 million records had been exposed. I mean, that is already like one of the largest data breaches ever. That is huge. Can you imagine the value if you were a nefarious person? Can you imagine having the information, the personal information on 4 million federal government employees, including people in the State Department, the IRS, the FBI, the DEA? Can you imagine having all their information? Now this was interestingly enough, a few months later, the government came out and revised their numbers, and I've got here where it says that they detected another couple of intrusions, and now they come out and say, well, 21.5 million records were compromised. Now, here is something interesting. They had first said about 1.1 million sets of fingerprints were compromised, and now they've come out and said, well, no, not quite. Actually, it was more like 5.6 million. 5.6 million. Now, to me, here's the scary part about the whole fingerprint thing. I mean, if let's say you got a password that you commonly use on the internet, and some hacker steals your password, well, you can always go into different websites and log in and change your password. So, you got, your old password was password 123, and your new password is the much more secure password with a capital P, password 456, and with exclamation point at the end. So you can change your password. But now let me ask you this: if your fingerprints have been compromised, how do you go about changing your fingerprints? Well, guess what? You can't. And so that is a very big problem. That is a very big black eye for the government. Now, it's not in this article I've got in front of me, but I've read about this a little bit before. And, one of this hack originated in China. And funny thing about it, turns out that access was gained to these highly secure computer systems because OPM, to save money, had contracted out to Chinese contractors. So they gave username and passwords and other credentials, to people, Chinese people working from China, and I'm not even making that up. So there's the one data breach, and now I'm going to show you this other one. Just take a look at my screen and make sure that shows up. IRS thieves have stolen 220,000 additional tax account. Now this happened about 3, maybe 4 months after the OPM data breach. Well, now come to find out the IRS had its own data breach, and they had originally thought something over 100,000. I see here the number they're given 114,000. So they had thought that 114,000 tax accounts had been compromised, and people's information had been stolen. Date of birth, address, social security number, your W-2s, your dependents, and so now they come out, they've done further study and found out that the number was actually 334,000. Now, I'm not suggesting we go back to dark ages and that the government shouldn't have, data and whatever. But here's the thing about it, right? When you concentrate massive amounts of data in these databases controlled by relatively few people, they're inherently in the system are, I guess, what I would call vulnerabilities. And so here's the thing, right? How do you go about protecting yourself if you want to live in today's modern world? And that's a question that, I'm sorry to say I don't have a quick and easy 30-second soundbite. I don't have a quick and easy answer to that. But it is a conversation that I'd say is worth having. And so, it's not, I'm not picking on the government here. At least that's not my intention. Private companies, Target had a bunch of data stolen, not long ago, relatively speaking. So anytime you concentrate large amounts of data in these databases, there's a weakness in the point of access, and the data can be compromised. And so I would like to, I guess, I don't have a solution for this, like I said, but I guess just get the conversation started. Let's kick it off and get the ball rolling, and let's have some conversations on how we can, protect each individual. One of us can go about protecting our privacy as best as possible. And what is and the other question, I guess, would be, what is the proper role of governments, and not only governments, but big corporations? What's the proper amount of data that could or should be collected about individual people? And what are the consequences of things like this? They steal your password, you change your password, they steal your fingerprint, and now what? So anyway, once again, my name is John A. Mitchell, and I am at johnamitchell.tv, and thanks once again for watching my video, and I will be back at you with another video in the future.